This innocent girl meets the most horrifying accident. I'm talking about Charlie from the movie Hereditary. Directed by Ari Aster in his feature debut, this film shook audiences with its disturbing atmosphere, layered storytelling, and some of the most unsettling moments in modern horror. As the name hints, this movie is definitely about inheritance, but instead of wealth, something totally unexpected is passed down in this family. But before we get started, let me warn you, there are going to be spoilers in this video. Hereditary stars Toni Collette in a powerhouse performance as Annie Graham, a mother dealing with grief and trauma. Alongside her, Alec Wolff served as her teenage son Peter, Millie Shapiro as her strange and quiet daughter Charlie, and Gabriel Byrne as her distant husband Steve. The movie starts as a psychological family drama with Annie's family mourning the death of her secretive mother Ellen. But as the family unravels dark secrets about their ancestry, it becomes clear that their suffering isn't just emotional, it's something far more sinister. The film plays on themes of grief, mental illness, and fate, making it feel as tragic as it is terrifying. But if there's one moment in this film that made audiences gasp, freeze, and sit in a stunned silence, it's Charlie's accident scene. This moment was so shocking, so masterfully executed, that it set the tone for the rest of the film, proving that Hereditary was unlike anything we had seen before. So, if you're tired of traditional horror films and want to see something unique yet terrifying, then Hereditary is a must-watch. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our new movie scene breakdowns. Let's start with a quick introduction to Annie and her not-so-normal family. Annie is an artist who makes miniature dollhouse models, and she turned this hobby into a successful career. While her husband Steve is a psychiatrist, he mostly seems distanced from his family. Their children include a 16-year-old son Peter and a 13-year-old daughter Charlie, who seems like the main lead, but an unexpected turn changes everything. The movie kicks off with Annie's family attending her mother Ellen's funeral. Instead of crying or mourning, Annie is found complaining about her mother being secretive and controlling. This wasn't exactly a heartwarming tribute, but the strangest part? The funeral is packed with people Annie doesn't even recognize. She never imagined her antisocial mother having so many friends. Even Annie herself wasn't close to Ellen, but Charlie really loved her grandmother. After Ellen's death, Charlie gets really disturbed and starts showing weird behavior like building little crafts out of junk and dead animals. Things get darker as Charlie starts seeing strange figures lurking in the dark, what looks like her grandmother's ghost. Meanwhile, Annie is also pretty disturbed and starts sleepwalking to dangerous levels. The only normal person in this family is Peter, who just wants to enjoy his teenage years hanging out with his friends. However, he has no idea what's coming his way. One night, Peter prepares to go to a party, but Annie forces him to take Charlie along. This may help Charlie forget about Ellen's death, but fate has its own plans. So, Peter and Charlie go to this high school party where Peter gets busy trying to fit in. He even brought a little weed to impress the girls, but Charlie keeps following him everywhere. To get rid of her, Peter asks the little girl to go get some cake without knowing it contains nuts. As soon as Charlie takes the first bite, she starts feeling unwell. She immediately tells Peter about the allergic reaction, and it makes him worried. Peter throws her in the car and speeds towards the hospital, but Charlie's condition keeps getting worse. Her throat swells up and she can barely breathe. This entire sequence is insanely tense. There's no music, no dramatic warning, just pure anxiety. Charlie's gasping for air, Peter's trying to stay calm, and you feel every single second of her struggling to breathe. The poor girl feels desperate, sticks her head out the window gasping for air. Peter has no idea what Charlie is doing in the back seat, and he keeps driving at full speed. Suddenly, he notices a dead animal on the road. While trying to avoid it, he quickly moves to the side. Charlie's head is still out the window at the time and slams into a telephone pole at full speed. Bam! And then comes complete silence. Peter stops the car and knows something happened, but he doesn't dare look back. He's frozen, completely in shock. Instead of checking on Charlie or panicking or calling his parents, Peter slowly drives home, parks the car, and goes to bed. Like his brain just shut down from the trauma. He knows nothing is going to fix this situation, and the only option he has is to avoid the situation as long as he can. However, morning arrives before Peter can actually make it to sleep. He can hear the loud moaning and crying of his mother, who discovered Charlie's body in the car. Though it was a complete accident, Peter can't face his parents. Like everyone else, he also blames himself and becomes distanced. This whole set of scenes is absolute horror perfection. It's so sudden, so realistic, so unbelievably disturbing that most people watching were left stunned in silence. There's no eerie music to warn you, no dramatic slowdown, just a shocking, horrifying reality of death. From the start of the movie, Charlie seems like the main lead, and her death comes as a complete surprise. She was just having an allergic reaction and on the way to the hospital. Her brother had a car, and there was no traffic to stop them. The worst anyone can really imagine here is Charlie passing out or the reaction just getting worse. Absolutely no one in the audience was ready to see Charlie's head getting cut off. On top of that, seeing Peter so calm may just confuse you even more. You may start hoping that Charlie was saved, but the next morning you see her head lying on the road covered with bugs. The director cleverly didn't show how Annie found the dead body or if they looked for the head. All of this is left to the viewer's imagination. The more you think of the mother's reaction to her child's dead body, the more uncomfortable you feel. And that's why this scene holds so much meaning and made Hereditary stand out among top horror films. Until this scene, the viewers may be watching the movie comfortably while munching on popcorn, but now they must prepare themselves as things are about to get a whole lot worse. After Charlie's shocking death, the family completely falls apart. Annie is drowning in grief, Peter is emotionally shutting down, and Steve is struggling to keep everything together. But as the days go by, something becomes clear. Charlie's death was not a random accident. It was always meant to happen. Annie can't get over the incident and spends most of her time with a support group. There, she meets a kind woman named Joan who knows how to communicate with spirits. Without thinking about the consequences, Annie brings the ritual home and convinces Steve and Peter to join her. What they don't realize is that this isn't some harmless attempt to reach Charlie's spirit, it's an invitation for something much worse. And it's from this moment on that things really get out of control. Peter starts experiencing terrifying visions, seeing shadowy figures in his room, and even catching his own reflection smiling back at him. At school, he has a full-blown breakdown, slamming his face against his desk as if something inside of him is trying to escape. Meanwhile, Annie begins to uncover the terrifying truth about her mother. She finds old photographs and books revealing that Ellen was a leader of a cult and Joan was also a member. They were all devoted to King Paimon, a powerful demon, and believed that by preparing a proper host, they could bring Paimon into the world. Annie also finds her mother's decapitated corpse in the attic, surrounded by strange symbols. By going through Charlie's drawings, Annie realizes that Ellen tried to use Charlie as a host, and that's why she pampered the little girl so much. The spirit showing up at their house is not Charlie, but Paimon. Annie tries to destroy the spellbook to get rid of the demon, but the book needs to be burned along with a person. Being too scared to kill herself, Annie forces Steve to do it and the poor guy bursts into flames. Unfortunately, the sacrifice goes to waste as Paimon has possessed Annie. Now, Peter is left alone in the house with a charcoal body of his dad and a mother who has become something inhuman. Peter hides himself in the attic, but Annie begins banging her head repeatedly against the door, trying to get in. When Peter finally gathers the courage to look up, all he sees is Annie sawing off her head with a piano wire. As he did before, Peter wants to escape the situation, and this time he does so by jumping out of the window. Is he dead? Nope. Just like the rest of the audience, you too have guessed wrong. He's completely alright and gets up to follow his mother's headless body. He climbs up to the treehouse where Joan and a group of naked cultists are waiting along with the headless bodies of Annie and Ellen. They're all worshipping a statue with Charlie's crowned head. Suddenly, Joan picks up the crown and places it on Peter's head. The movie ends here with the cultists chanting King Paimon's name. There are little to no dialogues in the ending scenes, but if you look carefully at the details, you may understand what happened. When Annie was researching King Paimon, it was revealed that Paimon preferred a male host. The easiest victim for Ellen was Charlie, so she was chosen as the first host. But the cultists didn't want to offend their demon lord, so they started coming after Peter, and eventually they succeeded. Here, we can conclude that Annie's family was never normal. They were all pieces of a ritual that had definitely been planned long before Charlie was even born. They were doomed from the start. This unexpected twist made Hereditary a huge success. One of the film's greatest strengths is Toni Collette's performance. She delivers one of the most raw, unsettling portrayals of grief ever seen in a horror movie. Her breakdown after Charlie's death is so painfully real, it's truly hard to watch. The way she shifts between sorrow, rage, and absolute terror is nothing short of masterful. It's a performance that should have won an Oscar, but horror movies rarely get the recognition they actually deserve. The moment Charlie's head meets that telephone pole, Hereditary stops being just a horror movie. It becomes a walking nightmare. It's a scene so shocking, so sudden that it leaves you gasping, just like Peter, frozen in silence as the weight of what just happened starts to sink in. But it's more than just a brutal twist. It's the film's turning point, the exact moment the story spirals into pure, inescapable dread. Ari Aster didn't just want to scare you, he wanted to haunt you. And with this one scene, he made sure Hereditary would never leave your mind, no matter how much you want it to. So, what were your thoughts on Hereditary? Did Charlie's death completely shock you? Did you expect it to end like it did? Let's talk about it in the comments, and remember to like the channel for more shocking scenes from horror history.